Om Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Param Om. Okay, Namaste. We begin today in verse number 1. And by the way, Arlene, shall we go back to your vichara, your investigation, your question about inference? So can you just let me know?
Sure. And you asked if self-knowledge is inferential. And I would say scriptural knowledge is a pramana and more direct than inference, if taken that way. But what do you think? What do you say?
Well, I mean, first let's go back to what you said, that you have been reflecting on the way the identity that every Jiva develops is based on inference, because we infer through the experience we have, through the mind and the five senses. We infer that we are the instrument of knowledge experience. Somehow our experience and the conclusions drive us to that mistaken identity. And also we know that we take that, we develop that through sensory inference, done by the mind. And that is easily understood. And the scriptures, they come to correct that, helping us to re-examine our day-to-day common experience of lives in the light of these teachings of the Upanishads. And then when we re-examine everything, and then we understand that we are not the instrument by which we gain sensory knowledge or sensory experience, but we are the witnessing consciousness. But that requires the pramana, as you said. So the pramana is the means by which we get self-knowledge. So the question then is, self-knowledge is pramana knowledge, pramana direct knowledge, or it relies on inference? Of course, it's not inferential, because inference depends on perception, sensory perception. So it's based on sensory perception. Any inferential knowledge depends on sensory perception. So there is smoke. I know that fire produces smoke, and then if I see smoke behind the hills, and then I know by inference that there is fire. So, but it depends on my direct perception of fire, always associated with smoke. So, as we know, the self is not an object of experience, and therefore it cannot be experienced objectively. And then this self-knowledge cannot be inferential, because that would reduce the self as an object of sensory perception, okay? So it's not. And then what it is, this self-knowledge? Self-knowledge is the knowledge gained by the pramana, which is the Vedantic pramana, which is a means by which we get knowledge. We get experience / knowledge. So we know that we get knowledge through the five senses, and the mind integrating these five channels of reception, and then coming to certain determination or knowledge or conclusion in regards to those perceptions. Very often the conclusions are not really perfect, they are not really correct. So we know we gain knowledge through these five senses and the mind. But now, to get knowledge about the self, since the self is not an object of perception and knowledge itself, so we need a totally different means of knowledge, totally different pramana. Pramana is the revealed scriptures, which is the only pramana to gain self-knowledge. Okay, so this pramana is going to produce in the first stage intellectual self-knowledge. Okay, so one has a clear understanding of one's true, fundamental, essential, intrinsic nature as conscious existence. So now I got that. That is clear in my mind. But Swami Paramarthananda and Vedanta says that that is the first stage, which in the past I used to refer as self-recognition. So you recognize I am the self. Huh? But then that self needs to somehow grow roots in the emotional body, let's say, and in the causal body, so that I can enjoy the benefit of that self-knowledge. Otherwise, the self-knowledge is not going to serve much of, it's not going to produce much of its fruits, you know. So in the language of Swami Paramarthananda, we need to do a lot of nididhyasana in order to internalize, process, digest, this self-knowledge. How so? Doing some upasana, some meditation, focusing the mind on this flow of similar thoughts around the declarations of identity appearing in the Upanishads and all our texts. So you study that, or you can just do by observing your interaction with the field and applying this knowledge every time that you see residual ignorance manifesting. So one is interacting with your environment. You are doing your nididhyasana. The other, you take time aside just to recall the teachings and then keep, digesting it, processing it. And this process is going to produce what is said, certainty, hard and fast, in the language of Ramjit, hard and fast self-knowledge, which is a certainty, doubtless self-knowledge. So what is a doubtless self-knowledge of full conviction? So it is a self-knowledge that is not subject to forgetfulness. And then what I have something that is going to protect me from Mr. Maya, which is deceiving us over and over again whenever we are not alert enough. So at the beginning, because this knowledge is not always available, alive and available in our intellect at all times, there is a possibility for residual ignorance to somehow create some trouble. So that's to say, self-knowledge is not inferential knowledge. Vedanta utilizes a lot of inference in the methodology, the teaching methodology it presents, of course. But self-knowledge by itself is not inferential knowledge. Is what we call direct knowledge. What is the most direct knowledge? Is a direct knowledge. The most direct knowledge is a knowledge in regards to something which is not an object of knowledge. There is no duality, knower and known. Is the knower recognizing its true, essential, fundamental nature, identity, intrinsic nature. So that is direct knowledge. And that's direct knowledge is often referred, I like to refer as self-recognition. And self-recognition is direct, is aparoksha jnana. And this aparoksha jnana has to become so firm to protect us from the power of Maya, the power of avidya. Okay? So, anything else? Any comments?
I'm just thinking that inference is such a useful tool for Vyavaharika, but if one can so radically mistake the most essential, then, I mean, being alert to the inferences we pull up in everyday life, could be really important to being dharmic. It's kind of lazy, this inferential wheel that you get on in just assumption, and
yeah. So
tricky.
Assumption, it could be better represent, let's say, vasanas. Vasanas, the bias, they compel us to project, to assume, to assumptions of things. Huh? So what I want to say is like the inference is used in the process, in Vedantic process, and to the same way by inference, by perception inference, we came to the mistaken conclusion, I am the body mind, using the same source of knowledge, which is perception and inference, analyzing our experience, which were not properly examined in the past. So using the same perception and inference, we're gonna cancel those mistaken conclusions. You understand? So when we cancel something using the same tone, putting a tone that went into one's feet, so you use the same tool, perception and inference, to expose the teachings, but the goal of this system, this teaching methodology, is to cancel the wrong notion, and then you remain without any notion, in regards to what you are, except I am a consciousness and I am existence and I am of non-dual nature. And some people will say it's better not even to say that, you understand? Because even that, in the end, someone will say, no, even that has to be retracted. Even that has to be rejected, canceled. Yeah? So what you are, but if you are there and say, so the only reality is I am consciousness, but as I often like to put, if you have a hum and if you leave it without properly defined this aham, chances are that aham is going to identify with emptiness or the void. You understand? Therefore, it's better to hold this concept. I am consciousness, existence of infinite, limitless nature. Until even this mantra, Aham Brahmasmi, Satchitananda, it's no longer necessary, because in the end, the jiva atma just is another jiva, but without the problematic of samsara, of avidya, So just the exhausting one's parabhada karma. So self-knowledge is a very unique kind of knowledge, because it's so simple, it's always there, it's unrecognized due to these problems, rajas and tamas, and other things, extroversion of the mind. And but once it is recognized, it's easily understood. It's easily understood. It's very, very simple self-knowledge. Because the self shining in the intellect of the Jiva Atma is self-shining, it's self-revealing, it's always present, It's just, that by which I know that I am, that by which I experience my life, and so on. That which is always ever present, never not present, shining through all the states, including the 3 states that we see in the Mandukya. So it's very simple, it's direct, but it takes some time to get to that firm conviction, because of the mental extroversions that makes Jivatma still look for the self as something other than him or herself. So let's go to the verse number 1, the Jiva, which page 137 at the very top. Correct, Lynn? The Jiva who is committed to upasana remains in that Brahman, which is subject to birth. He thinks all this was unborn Brahman before creation. Hence, he is considered miserable. Okay, so this is a very strong statement, criticizing Jivaita Bhakta, Jivaita Ishwara, Saguna, the love and the contemplation and the relationship between Jiva Atma and Saguna Ishwara. So here, Gaudapada criticizes it, saying that Jesus still is samsara, and no matter how long you stay within this devotional dual relationship with Brahman, which is defined by certain attributes which exists, due to the human mind who projects attributes to any ideals and so on, according to one's desires. So that is going to pacify and resolve the mind and refine the mind, purifying, developing this beautiful, wonderful emotion, which is devotion. But still it is samsara, it's sacred samsara or spiritual samsara. Therefore, one is still not out of misery, not out of samsara. He believes that my deity, out of Brahman, as if Brahman extends itself or divides itself, and then comes my God, my deity, who was born out of Brahman, but everything was before Brahman. When creation came, it came God first, and then Jagata and Jiva. So all those concepts around Karma Yoga that are very, very important here is being deconstructed by Gaudapada, which is a very dangerous statement, because the student has to be advanced not to misuse these final teachings, misunderstand these final teachings. Gaudapada says that the third chapter is very important because it deals with Advaita Jnana. Any type of Advaita is samsara, is the duality, Jiva Jagata, and the triangular format, Jiva, Jagata, and Ishwara as my protector. There are two types of Dvaitam, of duality. One is called secular Dvaitam, and the other is called sacred Dvaitam. Secular Dvaita consists of I, the observer, and Jagata, the world being observed by me. Jivatma and Jagata. This Jivatma, Anatma, Dvaitam. So this is all within the realm of Mithya. Mithya is Anatma, okay? Or apparent Atma. So this Jivatma, Anatma, Dvaitam, duality is secular. It's secular Dvaita because everyone knows this. I am here and the world is just before me. I live in the world. So this is beginningless ignorance, okay? This duality, I in the world. And nobody can negate, okay, the world without the help of the scripture. I mean, even if someone does come to that understanding without the scripture was already in one's subconscious mind from previous births. Then Swami says that in addition to secular Dvaitam, the scriptures also introduce another Dvaitam, which is the Karma Yoga and Upasana Yoga. And then in Karma Yoga, the division is I, Jiva Atma, and Ishwara, the creator, and the karma pala data, that which is going to give me the results of my actions. And Upasana Yoga, the same way, I am the meditator, meditating on what? Meditator on a symbol of Saguna Ishwara, of God. So I have Karma Yoga, and my actions are dedicated to Ishwara, and I have this devotional and appreciation because I hope Ishwara is going to favor me with better results next time. But then when I do in my closed room some meditation, so my object of meditation is not myself. it is my Ishwara, my Saguna Ishwara represent by whatsoever deity or entity. Both are duality, we understand. Karma Yoga in the Karma section, and then when the scripture, the Vedic scripture talk about Upasana, in the Upasana session, it also involves duality. The duality is I, the meditator, and Ishwara, my deity, is the object of my meditation. I, the Jivatma, in the Karma section, I, the Jivatma, I am the worshipper of the Lord. And what happens is that the Paramatma is Ishwara introduced as someone to be worshipped. So what he's saying is, when I'm in the Karma section, understanding the difficulty of Vedantins to go through Upasana, doing Nididhyasana, which is meditation on one's very Atma, one's very self, in which there is no duality. So Vedanta presents as a concession a symbol of Brahman. A symbol of Brahman is Saguna Brahman. So and then I worship, and then Paramatma, takes the shape of Saguna Paramatma, Saguna Brahman, so that my mind, which is not subtle enough, can develop devotion and focus, one-pointedness, using a symbol of Saguna Brahman. Are we following? So this is the sacred Dvaitam. In the Upasana session, even when we drop the rituals and take up meditation, there are also this kind of Dvaitam. So in the Vedas, someone is at the very beginning must do pujas and rituals and a lot of doings which are physical, verbal, and then one grows to the point that one can begin understand Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga is a very elevated kind of sadhana. And then one goes into this section of Karma Yoga, in which Ishwara is no longer a deity, but Ishwara is the intelligent cause, the material cause, the entire universe, the laws, structuring this field, this apparent field. So the mind of the Karma Yoga has to expand. And then this emotional, devotional sentiment develops, and the understanding of the relationship, all of that is going to purify and refine the mind. So in the Karma session, we have a lot of actions with a certain spirit and understanding. And then in the Upasana session as well, we drop, in both cases, we drop all the pujas and rituals, because now we are Karma Yoga. So Karma Yoga, under the umbrella of Vedanta, it's a knowledge yoga. It requires a lot of knowledge in regards to the apparent creator of this apparent creation that's going to accelerate the refinement and purification of the body-mind. So, and then the same thing with meditation. When we take the meditation, we take the meditation as a symbol of Nirguna Brahman, and that's all okay. All of that is Dvaitam, sacred Dvaitam. Gaudapada says that even though the sacred Dvaitam is considered very sacred and auspicious, that sacred Dvaitam also will be a cause of samsara. Very simple. Is it a good samsara? It is the best possible samsara. But it does not translate as freedom or knowledge, pure knowledge. any Dvaita is going to cause more samsara, no matter whether it is secular or sacred. Therefore, everyone will have to transcend Dvaita, the secular Dvaita and the sacred Dvaita, and come to Advaita. So what I observe is that based on my experience with my students in Brazil, especially, is that people, they were introduced to the sacred Dvaita, né? Through the Karma Yoga and so on. And then here and there, they have been studying Upanishads, and then they are introduced to the concept of Advaitam, that I am Brahman, Aham Brahmasmi, and everything is Brahman, and I am free, and so on. So one has to come to the Advaitam as presented by the Upanishad, by the final parts of the Vedas. But that not necessarily imply that I have to abandon my Dvaitam sadhanas. You understand? I have seen people that overreact and then they want to just walk away from Dvaitam upasana, Dvaitam Karma Yoga. And then comes a frustration, because if one is not really prepared to the Advaitam, and then it does not work. So, and then what I have been seeing is that people, they must stay with both sadhanas, which are Dvaitam, and sadhanas, which are Advaitam, okay? And then the process is that gradually we diminish, we reduce our Dvaitam sadhanas, and gradually, as our mind gets more refined, we increase our Advaitam vasanas, okay? Because both of them serve different purpose. One prepares, and the other, allows us to understand and be free. Isn't it the case, Felipe? Não é assim, Felipe? No Vedanta Brasil, né? Pode falar em português.
Igual.
Okay, Gaudapada starts the third chapter with this disturbing news that even Karma Yoga, or sacred duality causes samsara. So the devotion we have towards Saguna Brahman is duality. The only devotion which is not duality is the devotion to the Atma, the self, which is the essential, true, intrinsic nature of Ishwara, Jiva, Jagata, and that is Atma or Brahman. So the only devotion which is Advaitam is a devotion to myself as consciousness, as conscious existence, as Satchitananda, as the nature of Ishwara, Jiva, and Jagata. So, and it does not mean, as I was saying, that we should, reject Saguna Brahman and the devotion towards Saguna Brahman. It may look like Gaudapada is destroying devotion and destroying the sacred bhakti or Dvaitam, but that's not the case, because this statement is direct towards only very rare advanced students of Vedanta who have understood Karma Yoga, Dharma, Upasana, have understood the distinction between Nirguna Brahman and Saguna Brahman, have gone through many texts, many Upanishads, and then even though, not fully and firmly self-realized, one has an understanding of the benefits we get from Dvaita and Advaita. Dvaita is going to purify and refine and prepare the mind, and Advaita is the absolute truth, which is going to free the mind from any dependence, not even from Saguna Ishwara. Huh? Does it sound good? Or a sacrilege? If sacred Dvaitam itself is samsara, why should Vedanta introduce this Dvaitam? The reason is simple. Because you need Dvaita Bhakti to go to Advaita Yana. No? So he could have said Dvaita Bhakti, you can go to Advaita Bhakti. No? But Advaita Bhakti is synonymous of self-knowledge or yana, because your devotion is towards the non-dual Atma. And you have understood in the process that you are that you cannot exclude yourself from something that is non-dual, meaning to say one without a second, without any divisions. Yeah. Dvaita Bhakti is a temporary solution for samsara, to remove us from dependence on the world, to bring us to the Creator and establish a good, solid understanding of this relationship, which is going to harmonize our thoughts, emotions, words, and deeds to the principles and laws of the Lord, which we call the Dharma structure. No? Advaita Yana is the permanent solution. Dvaita Bhakti, and here we could say Dvaita Yana as well. The understanding of this Dvaita, a spiritual or religious spirit, Dvaita Yana. Now, so I often say that Mithya knowledge, as a good Karma Yoga, you depends on a lot of knowledge. What kind of knowledge? Mithya knowledge. What is Mithya knowledge? Is the knowledge in regards to the apparent reality, which consists of Ishwara, Jiva, and the universe, held by all laws and principles, to serve the purpose of giving us this field of interaction by which we can grow and be free. Huh? So it's all about knowledge, Vedanta, even as Karma Yoga. The first, which is Dvaita knowledge, Dvaita Bhakti, is like a first aid. So you have a problem, you have an illness, you had an accident, you go to the first aid or you go to the emergency room, and then later on, if needed, they are going to send you to the proper department in the hospital to get main treatment. Therefore, Vedanta does not have a problem with Dvaita Bhakti. It even introduced Dvaita Bhakti initially, until the individual, until the student understands and realizes the limitations of Dvaita Bhakti and come to the Advaita Yana. Okay? So it's very interesting that he never mentioned Advaita Bhakti, okay? Because generally, I mean, the Yani, the Vedantin, let's say, is the one that starts moving away from those sentiments, emotions, divine, sublime emotions of devotion, which is a relationship with the Creator and the Karma Paladatta. So that romantic relationship based on duality produce much more bhakti or emotional, sentimental, devotional experience, When you come to Advaita Bhakti, so you resume all that process in Advaita Yana. Okay. So it's very interesting, this passage here. And it's clicking in my mind because when you are Yani, you are devoted to knowledge, you are devoted to the truth. Okay. And the truth is one and only one, that everything is Satchitananda, everything is Brahman. And the whole thing about having emotional, sentimental relationship depends on duality. We know it from our human experience. You must have something other than yourself, which develops great love, and love often brings about attachments. Yeah? But once you understand Vedanta, you understand yourself, and then you know that you are the only reality, and then you don't need to be attached to your inner self, your inner nature, because you cannot be detached from it. When you deal with Saguna Ishvara, you try to connect. Yoga literally means connecting. So when you deal with Advaita, you need to connect. You make an effort to think about Saguna Brahman and to be devout and to have nice attitudes and love, appreciation. But once you come to Advaita, you understand that there is nothing other than the Atma, the self, and you are the self. And then naturally, all these emotional diminish, decrease. You understand? We say like, oh, some yanis, they still do pujas and they do this, they do that, but it's different. And some say that it's just not to disturb the mind of the students who are still in the mode of Dvaita, the triangular mode. It means to say that it's not destroy your bhakti, as it seems, and leaves you empty-handed. It's more like it's going to make it a clear point that all bhakti is direct to you as consciousness, you understand? And there is no duality, there is no division, and the devotee and devoted. So without producing any sense of vanity or arrogance in the mind of the yani, otherwise the yani is not a yani. But it is a fact that the more we establish self-knowledge, those Dvaita emotions, relational, devotional feelings, it diminish big time. One who is Dvaita Bhakta and wants to come to Advaita Yana is a discriminating person, but Dvaita Bhakta, who permanently remains in Dvaita Bhakti, is stuck, okay? And this is a pit. It's a pit because the person has prepared the ground so much. So Mark, you understand this analogy. So you go there and you know how difficult it is to cultivate. You need to observe several factors, and then you prepare the ground. And then when the ground is prepared, you decide to do a trip to India, and then you stay 2 months there. And then the ground is prepared, but you did not plant your seeds, so you are not going to plant and reap the fruits of your effort. So likewise, the people who did so much Dvaita Bhakti and Dvaita Yana, understand Ishvara, being a devotee, and so on and so on and so on. And usually with the Karma Yogas, the real Karma Yogas, we see Vedanta, meaning to say, or Sampradaya, they don't get stuck. The people who tend to get stuck, to my understanding, are the Dvaita Bhaktas that do not understand really Karma Yoga as knowledge yoga. You understand? That prepares the mind. So they attach to that image of God, and they became so attached and devoted and dependent that they get so much from that relationship, some sort of punya, and then they are getting stuck. But so the Vedantins going through Karma Yoga, usually they gradually, without any problem, they transcend this Dvaita Bhakti. Yeah? So therefore, is someone to be pitied because he did some groundwork, some basic work, but stopped there. Without Dvaita Bhakti, Advaita Jnana is impossible, and without Advaita Jnana, Dvaita Bhakti is incomplete. So here he exalts the Dvaita Bhakti, saying that self-knowledge is impossible without the triangular format, which is Dvaita Bhakti. It is impossible because the mind is not going to be to develop all the qualifications, which are so naturally and easily obtained by following the triangular formation. So, and then it says that without the Advaita Jnana, Dvaita Bhakti is incomplete. Therefore, the person who stopped there is to be pitied. Dvaita Bhakti is not an end in itself. As we know, being a Dvaita Bhakta is not harmful, but dying, that's very nice. But dying as a Dvaita Bhakti is a pit. Gaudapada strongly criticized those who wish to remain permanently in Dvaita Bhakti. They say that they are religious samsaris with different religious marks. Very nice. What is samsara then? How Buddhas define samsara? Who can give it a shot? Overall, generally speaking.
Samsara is the belief that this is the reality, and that this body-mind is the reality, and so we suffer accordingly. We suffer and enjoy accordingly. But everything is always impermanent, and everything is always changing. So there's no full completeness within samsara.
Okay, and we see in the context of what we are seeing here. Samsara can be Dvaita, or religious, spiritual samsara, or mundane, samsara. So samsara is to lean and depend on something. You either depend on the world of objects, that gives you some happiness here and there, or depends on the Lord. So samsara is dependence, and moksha is independence. So if we depend on God, is good progression, but we must not stop there. So Gaudapada further explains that the people who engage in Dvaita Bhakti, they look upon themselves as Jivatma, and they believe that Saguna Ishvara is the ultimate Paramatma. Okay, there is nothing beyond those deities that represent God, the creator, and the one who delivers our parabadas, our results. We have an interest there. We want good results. We want circumstances which are favorable. We want, what we want. And that is going to make us a spiritual, religious samsari. So they don't understand that the ultimate reality is Brahman or Paramatma, which is Nirguna, which is the Atma, the essential nature of the jiva, Atma. They create a division in Atma. Atma is indivisible. There's no parts and does not break down to create parts. or does not create anything from itself, but they create a division in the self. What is the division here? Is Jivatma and Paramatma or Saguna Brahman, which is the deity that I give all my actions, my devotion and my upasanas. So that's the division, the seeker and the object that the seeker is seeking, which is God. So a relationship established, and this relationship, there is a notion that Saguna Ishvara is the ultimate Paramatma. And they believe that the Saguna Ishvara, which is the ultimate reality in the mind of any religious person, is the creator. And I was created out of this Saguna Brahman, Saguna Ishvara. I think that Saguna Ishvara is the cause, and I, Jivatma, am the effect. This is what we see in most of all Vedas, cause and effect. This cause and effect relationship between the creator, which is seen to be the ultimate reality, and Jivatma is the fundamental mistake all bhaktas commit for different reasons, including the most profound and radical, which is Brahman or Paramatma has never created anything. In order to create, division must be there or multiplication must be there. So Paramatma and or Brahman would have to divide itself to create many, or multiply itself to create many, but that is impossible because Paramatma or Brahman is a karta and a bhokta. So this is the biggest mistake. Therefore, Gaudapada wishes to show that between Paramatma and Jivatma, there is no cause and effect relationship. So how about that? No cause and effect. That is what this Upanishad, which is the ultimate destroyer of all Vedantic notions, presents to us. So the Jivatma and Jagat, the world, is not effect of God. God as Brahman. Understand? There is no cause and effect. There is only a phenomenon superimposed by Maya, which is similar to a mirage. The duality creator establish a relationship which is false because there is no Paramatma, Jivatma duality. Why? Because Jivatma is Paramatma. Then what is there? The truth is there is only Advaita Atma, non-dual Atma. There is only the self, there is only Brahman, and I am Brahman. There is only Advaita Brahman alone. Paramatma is not a cause, and Jivatma is not the effect. This is the main teaching of the third chapter of the Karikas of Gaudapada. Gaudapada used several Sanskrit words in special meaning here. So the Jivatma, he used the same words to superimpose even more meaning. Sometimes I look to discover the meanings of something, and then I discover each one of these words may have 20, 30 meanings, depending on the context, And here Gaudapada is doing us a favor to use special meanings to some of the Sanskrit words. The Jivatma, who is a devotee in permanent Dvaita Bhakti, has the notion that Brahman is the cause, the creator, and mistakes himself to be the effect they created. The devotee falsely thinks that he was with Bhagwan original, and at the time of creation, he was forcibly separated from the Lord and trapped in this physical world. That's the very, very common concept in all religions. So we are forcibly taken apart, and we want to go back to God. So as if Brahman could divide itself, which is impossible. Brahman was never a whole, complete, total, made up out of parts, as some philosophies suggest, that small parts, the extensions of Brahman. Brahman divides in plurality and diversity. No. So this is all destroyed, negated in this Upanishad. The goal of this devotee is to go back and reach God and never come back, So I want to go back to God, the Creator, and then my union with God is such that I will live forever in Brahmaloka. This is the wrong concept of moksha. I, myself, an individual, living forever happily in Brahmaloka. This is Dvaita Bhakta. This is all right at the level of Karma Yoga and Upasana Yoga. Paramatma is not the cause, and Jivatma is not the effect, is the true understanding. There is no relationship because they are not two separate entities. There is only one entity, and it's not an experiencing, knowing entity. And that is our true nature. The substratum of something is never separated from the Namarupa. So the gold ring is never separated from the gold. There are no two entities, the gold and the gold ring. All there is gold appearing as different Namarupas. There is no cause and effect. There is an illusion produced by Namarupas. No separate entities. Eka Atma alone appears as dual. So the non-dual Atma appears somehow as duality, as Jivatma and the world. As long as Dvaita Bhakta does not know this fact, he is unfortunately miserable, spiritual, religious, samsaric. Gaudapada says that there is a way out for this spiritual, religious bhakta, jiva bhakta. Verse number 2, therefore I shall teach that Brahman, which is uniform, unborn, and free from misery. I shall also teach how anything which is born anywhere around is not really born. Nothing is created, ever. Therefore, I shall teach that Brahman which is the same, never subject to any change, constant, uniform, was never born, never going to grow old and die. Therefore, this Brahman is free from samsara. Samsara is misery, suffering. I shall also teach how anything which is born, the idea that anything was born, is not real and produce suffering and misery. This is not reality. Was never really born. Gaudapada says that he will teach that Brahman which is not a cause at all and does not create anything. The non-causal Brahman is called Advaita Brahman. So how many times we heard that Brahman is the causeless cause of Jagata. Nothing calls Brahman, but Brahman calls the universe in which jiva appears, in which Saguna Brahman is said to be the creator. So there is no creation. There is no material cause. There is no intelligent cause. The non-dual, non-causal Brahman is that which never produces anything. It does not multiply into many things or does not divide itself into many things. In order to create many, we need to multiply or we need to divide. If we don't do that, and then there is no plurality, there is no diversity, there are no many, there is only one Advaitam, no divisions, one without the second. Brahman does not produce the world, the Jivatma, in any duality. They all appear all right, but they are not produced. So the appearance exists that there is plurality, diversity, and the fundamental duality, experiencer and experience, knower and known. The non-causal Brahman, the Brahman that does not cause anything, which remains Advaitam all the time, can never multiply itself or divide itself or produce anything. Brahman is free from modification. Nirvikaraha. What is changeless cannot multiply, even to divide itself into many, is a form of modification. I'm breaking myself, I'm fragmenting myself. There is this concept in the spiritual field, it just breaks into pieces, Even when the Vedas or Vedanta on a certain preliminary level try to explain creation as a fragmentation of Brahman. Gaudapada says that he will teach that non-dual uniform Brahman because it's the only thing which is going to give us peace of mind, free us from misery. Why? Because as long as I remain divided, I myself and my personal God, I will be subject to limitation, anger, frustration, and depression. Because I haven't seen through the plurality, the diversity of Namarupas in the world to get to the fundamental substratum as conscious existence, Brahman, my true nature, the Atma, the self. If I don't see through the diversity and plurality of all pairs of opposites, I'm going to be lost in this jungle of the samsara. I will be experiencing infinite numbers of things, diversities of things, and I will believe that Brahman has created me, has created this world of plurality of objects, and I'm going to fall for the mistaken conclusion that if Brahman has created all of these, including myself, I must experience in this world as a means to complete myself. Gaudapada is not going to negate this seeming apparent creation. The creation seems to come out of Brahman. Gaudapada will show that the creation does not really come out of Brahman. Gaudapada will teach how nothing is created, even though the world seems to be created out of Brahman. Experiential creation is present, but factual creation is not really present. In Purusa Shukta, we find a statement, without creating the world, Bhagwan similarly creates the world. We will ask, how is it possible? Vedanta says that all of us are creating the dream world during the dream without really create anything and without negating the fact that that world is available for experience. The dream world is only a seeming creation, but not a factual one. Because upon awakening, in retrospective, we will mistakenly negate the dream world, believing that the awakening world is real and the dream world is not real. No? So it's saying like that the creation of a world, a realm of experience is done even, by our own minds through a certain Shakti. And every night, yeah, and we don't have any problem. And we understand that that is a seeming creation, it's a seeming universe, the dream world, And that brought Gaudapada to conclude the verse 2. And then we have him coming back in the following class, and he's going to do some summary of what was just said by us right now, seen by us right now. Now, so what do you guys have to say about this passage that is begin to challenging the belief that the world was created and that it is real? No? It was originated by Brahman. Brahman is the cause, the world is the effect. So we're going to go through many different angles and examples and analogies that will help us to understand that none of this is really created, because there is only one reality, and the reality is the substantial reality of the entire universe, which is conscious existence or consciousness, we would say. Everything exists due to this substratum, which is existence itself. And every conscious being is conscious due to this consciousness, which is the Chit aspect of Brahman, the only reality, the Atma, the self. So everything needs to be investigated so that we can resolve it in its essential nature. We have to go through beyond the appearance. There are so many appearances that are available to experience, but they are known to be appearance. It's very tough to take the physical world, the waking world, the physical material world, and our physical material body to be an appearance. But if we follow these logics presented by Gaudapada, we're going to come to the same conclusion, which is not far from what some scientists are coming to for many decades, because when you look into matter, you discover that the matter is not solid as it seems, It's just an experience of solidity. But we leave it for our next class coming Monday, Ishwara allowing. And if you have anything to share or say, that's the moment. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishate Om Shanti 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 Om. Okie dokie, namaste. Meet again this coming Monday.
Thanks, Arlindo.
Thank you, my dears.
Thank you, Arlindo. Great satsang.
Thank you, Philip.